Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Fine Arts and Communication here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the interim dean for the college, and I'm also the host of the podcast. In each episode, we feature an alumnus from one of the programs in our college. Today, I'm talking with Mike Gerrish, who received not one, but 2 degrees from WIU, a Bachelor of Arts in Communication in 1997, and then a Master's of Arts in 1999. And as I was just saying here, Mike, you look like you have not aged one bit.
Just a little bit more gray, but other than that, still young at heart.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and thank you.
Buzz. Great to see you. You look fantastic, by the way. They must be something in the union food or something over there. It's like they put you in a cryogenic chamber and froze you.
It's the union food. That's right. Well, Mike, let's give everybody an update of where you are, what's going on in your life, and then we'll talk about your career path.
Awesome. Well, I am in Lawrence, Kansas, which is about 30 miles west of Kansas City. Recently moved here for a new job. I've been here 1 year. Formerly, I was in Iowa and Des Moines, Iowa for 10 years. Before that, I was actually in Kansas. And before that, I was in Chicagoland right after I left WIU. So pretty much a Midwest guy. They just can't take me out of the Midwest. And I love it here. My wife's family's from here. So it's like coming back home for her and, raising our kids as well here. So it's really been great.
That's awesome. Well, as we get into your story here, Mike, I always like to ask people, because for years in my class that I used to teach mass media and minorities, we always used to begin with, what kind of influences do you think were shaping you early on? Was it family? Was it community? Was it friends? What kind of things ended up, do you think, now being reflective, for after this period of time? What influenced you early on?
I think what influenced me the most, Buzz, was probably I did not want to work outside and do hard labor my whole life. And I did a lot of those jobs through high school. And I was the first in my family to actually go to college. My sister was at WIU first, actually, but then she wound up leaving. And that's how I was exposed to WIU. And it was my only real look at college. I really had no plans of going to college, but I was like, wow, this is cool. So for me, it was, just like my parents affording the opportunity to improve every generation. So, being one of the first in our family to go to college, to me, it was just, what is the art of the possible? Let's do something different. Not that there's anything wrong with blue collar work, but for me, I wanted to do something different.
So you grew up in Cary, is that right?
Yeah, northwest suburb of Chicago.
Yeah.
13,000 people in Cary, Illinois.
Yeah. So what was it like going through high school where you, tell us about Mike as a high school student.
Oh, Mike as a high school student was funny because freshman year, I was about 5 feet tall. And sophomore year, I was like 6'4". So everyone thought I was a new kid. I just sprouted up overnight. But I was in all kinds of things, everything from wrestling to track to football. But really, my passion were in the arts and communication, and I was in a rock band. So
nice.
Again, I loved doing all that. Did that at WIU as well. So yeah, that was really me. And I would tell you, I was involved in so many things that my academics were a low priority. So I actually graduated, I think 132 out of 200 students in my class. So I was at the very bottom of the pile in terms of academics. So it's a funny story because I finally, saw this experience through my sister to go to when I went to WIU to drop her off a year prior to me graduating. And I said, well, hey, maybe I should try that out. But I realized that I couldn't get in. So that's a whole other story. I might as well tell it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I apply to Northern Illinois, Southern Illinois, Western Illinois, all the state schools. And basically they all rejected me. And because my ACTs and my grades were really low and I really didn't apply myself academically, but WIU actually gave me a call and also sent me a letter and said, we have this program. It's called OAS, the Office of Academic Services. And it's a special program where we'll conditionally accept you, but you have to maintain a certain GPA. So of course, what do I do as a communicator and artist? I sign up, get accepted to WIU, and I pick all the communication and art classes I could find to make sure that I got that B average. Little did I know that I would meet Sandy Shear, who was one of my mentors, and took a class with her, and it was me and all seniors because nobody likes public speaking. So as a freshman, here I am in this new school on my own at 17 years old with a bunch of seniors. And I will tell you, I took advantage of that. And I not only wound up helping out in the class, but making great friends. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I wound up writing a lot of speeches for a lot of people and made some good money in Western my first year.
I've never heard of that ever happening before.
Yeah, I'm sure you haven't. What's the funniest thing and the coolest part about it is here I go from conditional acceptance, academic probation, taking a public speaking class. 6 years later, I'm teaching the class and I graduate with straight A's, top of my class from WIU as a master's student. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't have many cool stories, but I'm pretty proud of that one.
No, that is, there's something about coming in and finding, where your lane is, and being able to hit the ground running, which evidently you were, not, and I'll just let you know, Sandy Shear, also my
Are you
speech
kidding
class.
me?
No way. She was wonderful. And I see Sandy all the time. And she is so wonderful. Still the best person. And always mentions and says, Buzz Hoon was in my speech class.
And look where he is now.
I know. It's
Yes.
so, I'm so happy that you had her too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Great staff, great faculty. And it's really funny because I think sometimes state schools get a bad rap. They think, oh, it's not one of these Ivy Leagues. I will tell you, and this is probably a foreshadow to some of the messages I would leave with prospective students, is that where you go is really important, but it's not the only thing. I mean, the peers, my colleagues at work went to Ivy League schools. I paid off my student debt a decade ago. They're still paying for theirs. And we're in the same jobs, if not a higher level than they are. So I would just tell you that it's just really important. It's just like anything else. It's like what you put into it is what you get out of it. And WIU was a fantastic environment for anybody to really reach their full potential. There's so much cool things going on there.
Yeah. The saying is grow where you are planted.
There you go.
And certainly you were given the opportunity to find your, and develop not only some self-confidence, but to find a way to grow into who you were going to be. What are some other early memories that you had at WIU and getting involved?
So many memories. Just there's so many different clubs, right? So yeah. I was in the adventure club. I was in the advertising club. I was in the communication club. So that was really cool to me because that's a really way you branch out and learn stories. And as a communicator, I live for the story. I love the story, and I love trying new experiences in order to create those stories. And so many from WIU and some of my best friends I met through those different organizations. Two of them to this day, Matt and Martina. And we're such good friends, and we believe so much in WIU that we actually started a scholarship. I don't know if you know this, Buzz, but we give away $4,000 annually to a up and coming promising student. So you don't have to be straight A's like most scholarships where you have to have top grades.
Right.
This is actually designed for people like me that need a chance and maybe can't afford to get through college, because I worked through all college, took out student loans, as I said, and it's hard. It's hard to focus on your academics when you got to make ends meet and finance this thing. So we're hoping to make it better for future people. So again, met some of my best friends through WIU. So, but you got to get out there because just like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you don't show up for anything, don't expect anything to come to you. And I think that that's the bigger message is, you got to try a lot of things and get involved in a lot of things. I mean, I was in track and field at WIU. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
I was actually, a walk-on for the track and field. I threw discus in high school and thought I was pretty good, and got to college and realized I could not compete. So much so, I forgot my coach's name, but it's probably for the better because I'm going to tell an embarrassing story about him. So he saw me biking around campus, just cruising through campus on my bike. And he said, "Look, you got to stop doing that." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "You're getting too skinny. You're losing too much weight." And I wish I had that problem now, but it was all strength training. I'm like, this isn't for me. So the point is, how many institutions can you say you could walk on and try out a sport, or you could, go to grad school, or get asked by the faculty to stick around and stay for grad school because you made such a good impression on the department? I mean, those are my experiences, which is, you could call it dumb luck, or you could just call it the institution that affords so many different opportunities. And I think it's probably a little bit of both, but probably more the latter.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that is so awesome that all three of you have done that for somebody, because it's such an important thing because you're part of somebody else's life transformation. That's what you're doing. You're helping some other person that probably maybe doesn't know you yet. But once they find out that they are the beneficiary of such generosity, they will realize that they have been touched by somebody else, a legacy that continues on. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Student loan debt is an absolute killer. It really held me back from a lot of things I wanted to do in terms of buying my first home and other things. And it can really just drain people, not only during school, but after. And it's a huge problem for people, and anything we could do to help people so they can focus on what's most important, so they're not straddled with debt. I mean, I work in financial services and health insurance, and health is wealth. So, and wealth is health. So yeah. I think making sure people understand at a very early age, that's my biggest advice actually to people, is to really think about your finances and start early. Because what happens is, you get to school and you want everything, and you want to be cool, and you want to go out and all these other things. You get out of college, you got to buy a new car, you got to buy a condo, you got to do all this stuff, debt. And then you start having kids or a family or whatever your life choice is. And those are all ching expenses. So really to start early on a plan. And I only learned this later in my 30s. Every 7 years, your 401k doubles. So by starting when you first get your job, you don't have the luxury of understanding what salary is like. So just sign up for the most possible you can in your 401k, because you'll never miss it. Once you taste that money, though, it's gone. You're never going to go back. So just my biggest advice is a financial one, because if you are comfortable financially, it enables you in your life to do whatever you want to do. If you're not financially secure, it limits your full potential. So that's why it's so important. It's not about greed. It's about living your best you.
And, I've talked to a number of alums in recent times, and their advice is very similar. They're like, you can't believe it, but you have to save money. You have got to save your money. Start saving right now, young people. And I'm like, that's terrific advice. I'm glad that somebody else is saying that to them, rather than just.
And I used to think it's like how big the hole is, how big the shovel is. Yeah. So some people, it's like, oh, I need this huge salary. You don't need a huge salary. I mean, you just need to save money. I mean, it's funny that people that make these huge salaries are some of the brokest people I know. And there's more teachers actually that are millionaires, if you look at it, than any other type of profession, because there's discipline, there's order, there's structure. So anyway, I'm super excited about this stuff. So much so that at my new company, we're actually launching a product. This isn't an advertisement, but we're launching a product on financial literacy to help people save money, because a lot of Americans, if a crisis happened, $500, they'd have a hard time coming up with that kind of money. And that's the majority of Americans. So this isn't like these are certain types of people. No, this is on average. People couldn't come up with $500. That's a shame. It's a shame, because we all have life emergencies. And that's kind of what segues into what I'm doing now in health insurance, is helping people with life's emergencies.
Well, let's reflect back a little bit more to WIU. You were an undergrad when we last left your story. How did you decide? When did you decide that you needed to go to graduate school? And talk about that decision.
Well, I got to be careful with how I say this, Buzz, because I don't want this guy's head to explode. But it was Mr. Dr. Pete Jorgensen. Mm-hmm. And I took a class with him my senior year, and I was so inspired by him. His energy, his charisma, the way he presented information, broke it down, the way he made communication and the use of data and argumentation constructive and fun. I mean, still a friend and mentor to this day. really just inspired me. And I said, I need to capture some of that. I need to bottle some of that. And when you find somebody like that, you take pause and say, there's something I can learn from this person. And one thing led to another, and there was an opportunity. It really encouraged me to apply for grad school. And again, I became a teaching assistant to help subsidize and fund that because it was expensive to do that. So I was actually applied for and got the Wayne Thompson scholarship as well, based on my academics, and was able to help fund grad school. And I got into the program, and Pete was my mentor and my advisor through the whole program.
So again, another opportunity for you to grow and to find out where your strengths are. And I think that's so neat that, Mike, you were just eventually continuing to prepare for where you are today. All these things that you're going through was really a neat way to see about how it was getting ready for you to where you're going to be at in this part of your life. So when you left WIU, your first job.
Oh, man.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So here it is. I think I'm a big shot, right? I mean, I've got this awesome rock band. I'm working at the Change of Pace, which, was like at the time was like the big cool club in town. Right. I got straight A's, graduate, with honors, I'm feeling good. Right. Like people owe me something. Well, then I get on the workforce and I realize people don't owe me squat. And actually there's 10 people as good, if not better than me, applying for the same job. So this is around 1999, 2000. So I couldn't get a job. And I'm like, it was so like demoralizing because I'm like, I did everything right. And I was surrounded, like, it was like this pyramid. I was like on the top. And then all of a sudden it was like, I had to start over again. It's like, man. So I just took the first job I could get, really, which was a telephone account manager. I was at TAM at SPC Ameritech, which is now AT&T. And I was on the phones all day. I mean, I was hammering the phones. And you talk about communication, you talk about a humbling experience. I give credit to this day to anybody that has to work on a phone, whether it's customer service or sales. It is one of the hardest things because you really have to be very articulate, succinct, to the point, and read the body language without seeing anybody. I mean, it is a very hard thing. Turns out I sucked at it. But it was cool because I developed great relationships, but I didn't really sell a whole lot. But I love the idea of sales. I love numbers. I love communications. I get it. And that's really where I kind of found my passion for marketing, to say, look, I'm good at the messaging. I'm good at putting together the brochures to train, to teach others. But as far as actually that fire to always be closing, that's just not my DNA. It's not, I don't have that characteristic as much as, I probably should have, but I knew that I had the opportunity, and marketing is really a great blend of sales and communications. It's kind of in the middle when you think about it. So that's where my marketing career decided. I'm like, you know what, I need to get into advertising and messaging and use my creative in a different way, design work. Also, I forgot I was a graphic designer in college as well. I had a bunch of jobs. So anyway, I don't want to go backwards, but my point is, I had a friend, and again, talk about connections. My best friend growing up in Cary, Aaron Semmel, his sister, Larissa, worked at Discover Financial, and she was in the advertising department. And, my resume, good luck. It was bottom of the barrel. But the fact that my best friend's sister worked there kind of put my resume to the top. And I got an interview and with the chief marketing officer and, big wig in the company. And she asked me one question. And I want to say that she said, if you answer this right, you got the job. And I think that sounds like a better story than what actually happened. But she did only ask me one question. And the question she asked me, and I still ask it to this day of people I interview, is tell me a company who's doing it really well and why. And tell me a company who's not doing it really well and why. And that was her only question. And I answered that question. And she said that was an awesome answer. And she didn't say I got the job, but the day later I was offered the job. And from there, my marketing and advertising and communication career really took off from there.
I agree. You should just mold that into, and this is what got me that job. Just completely. She put this on me and I came through. I like that.
Yes,
part.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get into marketing, but you continue to move up through the ranks. And I think that's what's really neat, is that you had this leadership that was always kind of also down, within your skill set, but it comes to fruition as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's an internal drive, but it's also having great mentors, and I think that's so critical and important. I mean, when I think back, it's the people that were my leaders. Diana Uhas, I'll make sure that she was my first leader, amazing leader. And she wasn't really showy and in front. She was always behind, but one of the smartest people and best people I've ever worked for. Really taught me how to project manage and how to be thoughtful and ask different questions and play the contrarian. So don't just agree with everybody. Emily Ash, another one. Keith Heckel, another one. I mean, the list goes on, and these are all people that saw more in me than I probably saw in myself at the time, if you think about it. I mean, I remember one leader said, you have what it takes to be a CEO someday if you want it. And for someone to say that to somebody when they're 25 or 26, like, that's pretty special. Like, that does something to your heart, that plants a seed that says, I have the opportunity. But I think the biggest lesson is you can't do it alone, and you need to surround yourself with good mentors, people you can learn from. And that's a humbling thing, but an important lesson I learned early.
Yeah, that idea, Mike, as you talked about of finding people within your organization, and it's not a selfish way of making a network or whatever you may think. It has to be, as you said, you have to come in with a humble approach, and one that talks about how you are going to be shaped and what you will learn from that process. That's a great attitude and an approach to expanding what you already hope where you get to go. I think that's a great lesson for our younger people as they listen to this. So you obviously have had over the years some changes in what your role has been. Let's talk about what do you like? What do you see as some of the big challenges in your job as it is?
Well, wow, that could go in a lot of different ways. But what I love is the ability to be creative and try new things and constantly be innovating. So these different roles that I've had, I'm finally in a place where I can really experiment and try new things. And most recently, we have 2 new initiatives here that probably would have never been done had we not just gotten creative and thought differently. So I could talk about those now, or I could talk about those later. But that's really cool. But the thing that I think people forget is that it takes time to get to that point. You can't just get your first job and be all of a sudden like you can develop all the new ideas and the innovation and the strategy. I mean, it takes time to get there, and you need to put in the work on the work teams in order to get to that place. But kind of now that I'm finally here, it's amazing. The biggest challenge I have is really staffing. I mean, when you think about COVID and you think about remote workers, everything changed in the last year. So going from these big companies like the one I'm in now, where we had all of our employees in one physical building, well, now these people can work anywhere in the US and actually, or not, even internationally. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to be on conference calls with different people that they've rented an Airbnb in New Mexico for a month and they're working from New Mexico for a month. I mean, the whole workforce is changing. And I think meeting the needs of the next generation of worker is probably the biggest challenge, because trying to engage people, I was classically trained at the academy at Western in interpersonal communications and seeing you and reading your body language and doing this on video. I only could see a third of Buzz, right? I don't know, you can't pick up on a lot of those things. So trying to inspire and engage people and draw them out and get their ideas has totally changed. So for me as a communicator, you think you know it all, but in the last year and a half, it's been a real learning and a stretch for me to say, how do I get creative to engage people in different ways? Because everything's changed and it's going to continue to change. So that's the big challenge.
Yeah, I would imagine so, Mike, because I think that even I appreciate the ability to talk to you via Zoom. There's so much that gets lost in that what had been a traditional face-to-face interpersonal communication style that was going on for years and years. And now, I'm sure for some teams, it's really easy for somebody to fall off or to drift off and stay muted or to keep their camera off, to disengage, to feel frustrated that they're not being heard or seeing that they're whatever they're contributing. So I think that, is that something that you as a leader that you're trying to figure out as well?
Absolutely. And it's really about intentionality. It's literally looking at who's on the call and thinking about who's someone who doesn't usually talk in person. And you almost have to double it up and say, let me call on that person first. It's kind of the leaders eat last type of philosophy, is like, just stop talking, more listening. And it's really forced me to just, think differently about how to engage people. So yeah, it's literally like, hey, Buzz, what do you think? I want to hear your ideas first and get people comfortable, and making sure everybody's on video. Like, people can very easily get distracted. We have so many communication modalities. It's kind of funny, when I went to school, we didn't have phones, people had pagers. I mean, that's how old I am, right? It's like, when you think about it, it's like, I couldn't imagine all the distractions. I mean, at work, even we have email, we have text, we have Teams, we have other message notifications. I mean, it's very easy to get distracted when you're on a call, and people just aren't as engaged. So as a leader, as a coworker, you have to be way more intentional and including people.
You mentioned, I think, in your notes that you are more of a facilitator than you were in some of the other roles. That some of your responsibilities is to make sure that you have people doing the right type of things. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's been a big transition too, because when you're younger, you want to make a name for yourself, so you do speak up, and you want to share that you have good ideas and kind of prove your value. But then there's this weird tipping point where it's like, you got to learn how to shut up and listen and draw out others. So I've been very intentional to do that, to say, when I get on a call, hey, we've got this problem in front of us. What do you think? John or Sally, and get them talking first, and then let other people build off their ideas and be more of a facilitator of great ideas. And then also getting to know my people and their strengths. So, if I know Brian is really good at graphic design, and I know Jonna is really good at strategy and messaging, do I intentionally pair them together and say, hey, Brian and Jonna, maybe you guys can get together and talk about this, because you're really good at the visualization, Brian, and Jonna, you're really good at messaging. So I think you two together would be amazing. And then they're excited, I'm excited, and it's just a different way to do things. And that's been a transition, but a really good one. And then you see the product, and it's like 10 times better than I even thought it would be. And it's like, that's awesome. So it's like, for me, it's like a recipe. It's like putting people's strengths together and seeing what comes out.
Absolutely. And I think it's, it must be something that only kind of develops with age, in the fact that you, over that period of time, realize that you don't have to be the loudest voice or the most creative person. And as you said, you want other people within your organization to contribute. And that's just a wonderful thing that you've learned. And hopefully young people realize that, that early on, they can contribute, but I think, as you kind of said, you don't get there right away.
Yeah, it definitely takes time. And I will tell you, just dating myself in terms of what my motivations were when I first got, I remember it vividly. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, what my goals were. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to make a certain dollar amount. There were all these kind of superficial things. There was nothing in there about like leadership or learning or growing. It was all these kind of traditional things. And I wasn't uncommon with a lot of my peers, right? But then as you get into there, you're like, what's the point? I mean, if you're not learning and becoming a better person, then
right,
all the other stuff comes and goes. I mean, and by the way, I've been in a lot of jobs too, that I made a lot of money, but I was miserable. I mean, it wasn't fun. And, that's another thing too, that I think people associate. Work has to be not fun, and not working is supposed to be fun. It's like, no, work should be fun too. You should really enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't, you should quit.
And I'm glad that you're in that part of your life, Mike, because I tell you that is a hard thing sometimes for people to find. Where do you think your future lies? Do you see, more mountains to climb? that you have new goals that you have set?
Yeah, it's crazy because cliche as it might be, chief marketing and experience officer for a $1 billion company. No way. That's way further than I ever thought I would ever be in my career. But here I am at 45, and I got some years ahead of me still. I got to work for another 15 years, or if I'm lucky, right? So I really love what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm building a whole new department. So kind of coming in for a team of about 25, coming from a much larger team, but really starting from scratch, and all these variables I talked to you about remote work and building a new division. So they just introduced customer experience here. I had done that for almost a decade at my last company. So I've kind of been through that, but it's funny when you're really good at something, but you come into a new place and have to do it again, it changes, right? So it's not just like pulling out the recipe book and just like going down the chart of what to do. It's about employee experience. It's about culture. It's about this new environment, different customer set, different people in Kansas than even Iowa. You think that, they're so close, but there's a lot of different dynamics going on. So to me, it's like, I'm still excited. Like I just started to get started here, and it's been a year. So I could see a lot of really cool things happening. And I probably good time as any to tell you about it, but 2 really cool things that we're doing, actually 3. The one I already talked about was that financial literacy and that program to help people get on the right path with their finances. That's one thing I'm really excited about that we're launching here with one of my peers here, Trina Mason. I'm really excited about that. And then we also next week are launching something that is kind of taboo, which is mental illness and mental health. We're launching a new platform. It's kind of like Match.com meets Provider Finder, where you can go on and say, I have this particular behavioral health issue, and it pairs you with a doctor that's perfect for you. And you can kind of see their picture, their bio, and you can select them. It's totally private, because what happens a lot of times is people that have mental illness or mental health issues don't know where to go. They go to their doctor, they wind up getting the runaround. They don't get the care they need because general doctors aren't mental health professionals. So really cool that we're going to actually help people and, potentially save somebody's life if they're in a weird spot and really need help. They're going to get connected instantly with somebody telephonically, talk about COVID, telehealth services where they can instantly get the help they need. That's a big game changer. And then most recently, I'm super excited about this harebrained idea, but we have a problem in the state with people getting vaccinated. But we have these awesome interstates going through the state and these really nice service areas. So it's not just like a toilet. It's like you got the restaurants, you got the gas. I mean, they call them service areas, not rest areas, they're service areas. So partnering with the state, we came up with an idea to actually do pop-up vaccinations. And we've gotten hundreds of people vaccinated and tested for COVID. 2 awesome stories last week. One person was going to a wedding. They got tested positive. They turned back around. So think about hundreds of people that they could have infected.
Wow.
Another one, my favorite story, is a trucker. Because everyone's at home and they're ordering all this stuff on Amazon, they're nonstop on the road. They don't have time to do anything, let alone take care of themselves. She was in tears because she had us there giving her a shot while she was filling up her semi. By the way, do you know that it takes like 10 minutes to fill up a semi with gas? You learn a lot when you spend a day in a rest area. But anyway, so my point is, as long as I'm having fun and making a difference and doing meaningful work for people, those are just a few examples of the things we've done in the last year. I mean, that's so cool and so fun that I can't see myself getting bored. I guess if I get bored, I'll do something else.
Well, you're solving problems. I mean, you're doing it in a unique way, but you're looking at the problems of an organization and you're solving some of the problems that they have. And that, I think that, one of the charges that we've said over the years to our students, or at least I've always said to the students in broadcasting, I always said, I want you to go out and do great things. And Mike, I'm telling you, you're out there. You're doing some great things. I'm very happy for you. I'm very proud.
Thanks, Buzz. You're doing great things too, man. You're doing this so people get to tell their story.
Well, it's so much fun. I tell you, because what I think it does is for our students is they see themselves in you. They see this as somebody that says, hearing a lot of the same connections of, coming here and trying to find their path. and saying, well, this is a possibility. That's very inspirational, Mike. I mean, and that's
hey,
one.
If I could do it, a poor student that had no money and had no grades, I mean, where do you go from there?
Well, yeah, but you have some skills, brother. You have some skills.
Well, I think you helped me with a few of those. I only took one class from you, but I still remember you. Like when you think about like who are the people you remember, I mean, definitely Buzz is one. So thank you. We had a lot of fun, and I realized that I wasn't made for TV, more of a face for radio. But thank you for teaching me some of those skills, because I do have to get interviewed from time to time by the media, and it's not my favorite thing to do, but it is important and it's fun. So.
Well, I know that our students hopefully have listened to this and learned some things, but let's hear some of your recommendations directly for them. If they are sort of a comm major, somebody that's interested in the same sort of area that you were, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think the finance piece is so important. And I was always really good at making money, even through college. I mean, I had all these different jobs, but I never had anything. I never held on to anything because I always chased the next thing. So I just think that that's so important for people to get a grounding in finance. And it's weird because, a lot of people go to communications because they hate math. Well, guess what? In communications and marketing, you do a lot of math, and it's all about the numbers and the metrics and the KPIs and key performance indicators. So I think it just helps you so much if you have a good grounding in your finances and you can save. I think that's so important. I mean, I wish I would have put in money, maxed out my 401k when I started in my 20s. Because if I would be a millionaire today. But because I bought cars and houses and stuff, it's not going to happen. I got some more years to work, but you just look at the math, and I just think it's so important. I can't stress that enough. The second thing is, I would say stories. Everyone has a story, and I would do this. I'd look at these people, and I'd look at the cars they're driving, the houses they live in. I'm just like, man, what do these people do? And then one day I just started asking them. I'm like, hey, what do you do? And they would tell me these stories, and you'd learn like all these fascinating art of the possible. I still ask this question to this day. Even though I'm, by outside looking in, I'm at a successful point in my career, but I met this gentleman last weekend, and I was at a tailgating party at KU campus, and I tend to go and pick the person in the audience that's the least like me, and that's kind of a uncomfortable thing to people. But when you think it's kind of like the cafeteria when you walk out and you look around and see who's. Find someone who's the least like you and go sit with them because they've got the best story. So anyway, there was this younger guy, and he looked like Van Morrison. His hair's got the man bun. He's all tatted up and stuff. He's wearing like army boots. And I'm like, this guy's got a story. Well, it turns out that he makes mountain bike trails. He goes around the nation and he builds mountain bike trails. And I just got back into mountain biking. So next thing you know, we totally hit it off. And now I know that there's this whole other business of mountain bike trail building that I didn't even know that discipline or that existed. So I would just say, reach out to people. Don't be shy. Everybody loves to tell their story. I don't care who you are. People like to talk about themselves. So ask people what their story is, and you'll learn a lot, and it'll actually inspire you to think about your story. Well, thanks for sharing your story today, Mike. You bet. It was a lot of fun, Buzz. It's great to see you. Yeah. I'm flattered that you asked me. Like I said, I'm a nobody. So the fact that, I've got this honor to talk to whoever's going to see this, and hopefully somebody got something out of it and inspires them. But anybody who is second guessing themselves or don't think they can do it, that's just BS. You got this. You can do this. Anybody can do this. You just got to set your mind to it, and you're going to be unstoppable. So, and next time that's right. Next time you're in Macomb, I owe you lunch, brother. Hey, I owe you lunch. And thanks to all those that are watching the podcast or listening. We want to continue to hear from our alumni from all of our colleges on the podcast, and we hope that you continue to support not only our departments, but also the university. So until the next episode, stay safe, take care, and God bless.